Hey friend, welcome to Life Chats with Friends. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here, for once again creating the time to invest in your own process and journey of self-discovery and growth. If you are returning, thank you as well for being here, for continuing to show up for these really important conversations. There is so much going on and happening in the world today, and it's so important that we pause to just to revel in the mysteries of life, to revel in our own journeys, to revel in what is happening on the inside, so that we can start showing up in different, more progressive ways for one another, so that we all feel seen, we all feel heard, we all feel valued, we all feel celebrated. Today, I am super stoked and so excited to finally have Christina Glennon with me here on the show. I will let Christina share a little bit more about herself and her background in a minute, but brief kind of intro background on how we met. Christina was a former boss of mine, manager, team member on what was a super kick-ass team, one of the best teams I've ever worked for in my career, and has now turned into a mentor and a friend. And so happy to have Christina out here with me in California as a part of my support system and network. She has so much knowledge and expertise in inclusion and belonging and what it means to be a good human being at its core, and everything that comes with that, the training, the language, the capabilities, the knowledge. And so as we here specifically in the US move through this election cycle, I thought it would be so valuable, so critical to say, to have Christina on the show to help us think through how we can navigate and really see past our differences, being able to listen with intent, being able to approach our differences through the really empathetic lens, really being able to understand each other so that we can move past this division and get to a place where we can really just start to grow and heal, unite. And so with that, Christina, I will pass it to you and would love if you'd be able to share a little bit more with our guests about who you are, your background, and then we'll get right into it.
Amazing. Antonio, that background just took me back to the good old days when we were working together, and we had such an awesome swashbuckling adventure, just making the world a much better place, or at least better than we found it. It's been such an honor to be at your side and to watch your growth, both as a person and as a professional. So I'm just so happy that we're still together and kicking ass. So a little bit about me. I'm a person that tries. I try in everything that I do, and every room that I'm in, I am still trying. I always think about one of my heroes, Rita Moreno, who she played Anita in the original West Side Story. She's Puerto Rican. She's a starlet from that golden age of Hollywood when Hispanic women were not traditionally welcome. And I like the way that she describes herself, and I feel like I want to steal it from her for today. But she likes to say that she's a girl that went for it. And I think that's me. I'm a girl that goes for it. I started out, as an adult in the military when I enlisted at 17 years old, and that's when I really started to experience that the world is a much bigger place than the one that I was exposed to as a kid. I was serving with people from all walks of life, from different beliefs, different backgrounds, and different definitions of who belongs in America. But there was this point in time when we all started to work towards the same thing, which was getting through it together, achieving a mission together, staying alive together. And suddenly political affiliation, the tribes we used to belong to faded away, and we really depended on each other and became community. And I took those lessons with me throughout my career and learned a little bit about how to apply esprit de corps into my work life and to help teams, very dynamic and diverse teams, work together in building a culture of inclusion, cultures of belonging, where we all feel sincerely responsible for each other's success. And I think when people develop the mindset that we're better as a unit, when we care for each other's success and not just centralize our own, then companies flourish and cultures are unstoppable with the radical acceptance that we need each other. And so here we are, 2024, and this is a really different and complicated and terrifying time in the US, because we're coming up on a decision. Well, I guess by the time this airs, we will have made a decision, and now we have to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah, and thank you for that, and thank you for the background. And I think, to your point again, we are now recording this 2 weeks out from the election, but I'd love if you'd be able to give a brief overview of post-election tensions and, to your point, this sense and ideology that we need each other. Why does empathy and understanding play a crucial role during this time? Or how does empathy and understanding play a crucial role during this time?
Absolutely. I think that post-election tension is inevitable. And let's talk about one thing first off. It's personal. It's all personal. And our decision, to choose one or the other and appoint that person to be the leader of the highest office in the country, that decision is personal. And very rarely do people bring their political beliefs to a decision without bringing their personal values along with them. So I think it's important that we just admit, especially when we say this to each other and we go, it's just politics, it's not personal. It very much is personal, whether on either side of the belief spectrum where you are, where we're trying to understand who belongs, who decides who belongs, and then how do we move forward when we're disappointed that those decisions aren't the ones that we want or need. And that's a really scary and difficult place to be in, because we're having conversations that are personal with people that may not always agree with us. And so it brings us to these tense places where we're like, I love you and I know you, but this decision that you're making, or maybe the decision that I'm making, doesn't create a space wide enough for both of us. How do we move forward together? How do we create radical grace and acceptance of each other when the decision alone feels like it doesn't support that? And so I struggle with that as well, because in my workplaces, and I should say that my views are my own, so my views are totally 100% my own. I have a very high responsibility to create places for each other. We have work to do. We have the thing to sell, the agenda to drive, and we depend on each other. And so I think moving in a way that feels too sterile doesn't create belonging, because now we're not saying the thing that is exactly what's on our mind. But then discussing the thing openly may not feel safe, and we may not be ready yet. So I think step one in workplaces, or even in our personal lives, to creating that foundation for civil discourse is to accept that it's personal. And it's kind of like that iceberg where we only see so much above the surface. There's usually so much underneath. Our experiences, our values, our family of origin, the place where we grew up, the beliefs that were instilled in us, those are beneath the surface. And I think getting there gradually in a way that helps us see each other, in spite of the fact that we may disagree, is really helpful to getting back to a place where we can talk about things, understand each other, probably never agree on something, but love each other anyway. That's tough, but I think that we've done it before. And I'm old enough to remember a time when we could disagree. We could vote our values. We could vote for our principles and the policies that serve our self-interest, and get over it. We would vote and we would deal with the results, and then we would show up to the Thanksgiving dinner table and have a great time. We can do it. We've done it before. We can do it again.
What do you think is missing from our collective experience? And so I'm kind of reflecting on just looking around me, or even social media, just seeing relationships crumble, relationships falling apart because it's just become so black and white. What do you think is missing fundamentally from our collective experience that's hindering us from being able to say, okay, I can hold space for your point of view, even though I may not see things the same way that you do, but I can still hold space just for you to be in whatever your experience is.
Yeah. The word that came immediately to mind is safety. And I think that when we make each other feel safe and having these discussions again, I think is kind of the passport of entry into having these conversations, these heavy discussions. And without safety, of course, we're going to be terrified of the consequences of disagreement because we don't know. And I think we've shared a history, a very recent shared history where we've seen consequences play out. We've seen people get verbally accosted, physically accosted. In these times when we're gaining access to information and images and experiences in real time, of course, we're terrified of what could happen if we have the conversation or if we ask the questions. And I think it's the safety thing that we need to establish first in order to trust and move forward.
And based on your experiences, your own lived experiences or professional experiences, how have you approached bridging, differences in belief systems to say, especially in polarizing environments? Or is there a story that you'd be able to share with us in how we could turn this into practical, applicable wisdom? So, somebody listening to this could say, okay, cool, here's a framework that I could leverage today to do the hard thing, to muster up the courage to, see if I can practice this with, let's say, a friend or a family member where they may be having this tension in how they see each other from across, different lines.
I have a very recent and vivid example of a situation I was in. Not a political situation, but I think the same method can be applied. I was chosen to serve on a jury, and it was a pretty serious case with pretty serious consequences involved. And you know me, Antonio, I can't just like sit in the sidelines. So when they were looking for a four-person, I raised my eager little hand and I'm like, I'll do it, and I regretted it almost immediately as we started to kind of like go around the room and gather perspectives and initial instincts around a verdict. I realized like this is hard because there are 12 people in this room. We don't know each other. We are perfect strangers. Everybody has a story that I don't know. Certainly a shared belief that what we're doing is important and it matters. And then we were also bringing our own ideas and experiences with the justice system in itself, or the experiences of someone we know and love with the justice system. So I was immediately thinking there was no way we would get to one decision. We won't get there. We're too different. It's too hard. And by the end of day one of deliberation, I was pretty much convinced that we were going to be a hung jury and I was going to have to, accept that I couldn't get it done. I couldn't get the job done. And so I agonized over it and I stayed up until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just thinking, what is it that I can do or say to get the conversation moving in a similar direction? Not so that we all agree with our whole chest that this person did it or didn't do it, but that we can be mostly okay with the one decision we make as a group. Not fully okay, but mostly okay. And I decided to use things that have made me successful at work, and that is to take care of people. And so by, the next day, I realized that we all want to do the same thing, which is make a decision. We all want to honor the expectations of our job as a jury person. And we all kind of want to get through this and just like put it behind us. And I tapped fully into my ability to be an emotionally sincere person. Tears flowed as we made this decision. For anyone that's ever served on a jury, There are moments where you do bring your real self, your full and entire authentic self to a decision. And sometimes that person comes through with strangers easier than with your own family. And so I had to honor the fact that people were emotional. People were coming from varied places. And as I took care of people, as I amplified space or created space for one opinion while managing another, we all started to kind of peel the layers of the decision, the reasons that the decision we're making is the right one, until finally, by day 2.5, we decided together what is going to happen. And we delivered a decision to the judge that made us all feel mostly okay. I will say that people walked out of that room after we made that decision together a little bit disappointed, but we felt mostly okay. And one thing about that experience is that we took care of each other. We made sure that we felt fed literally and spiritually. And, as people shared why they feel a certain way, we allowed space for that. And we just kind of became a temporary family, And I don't think that happened by accident. I think it kind of takes one person to break the seal on human connection. And then it allows permission for people to go, oh, it's safe. It's safe to really care. It's safe to be involved and bring our whole selves to this situation. And I know that's a long story, but it's one that is really vivid in my mind because I was feeling pretty defeated shortly after I started this experience. And then I realized, wait a second, I know how this works because I've been here before. When we disagree and when we're angry and when we're taking things personally, the one thing that gets us through this okay on the other side is to practice sincerity and concern for each other. And I think we can do that on a larger scale, especially as we face this decision that by the time this airs will have been made. Okay, fine. The decision is made. Now, how do we care for each other now that it's over?
Beautiful. I love that. And for anybody listening, if you are like, I imagine many people that may be feeling any sort of confusion on like, okay, now what? Or how do I move forward? And or how do you get to this place of empowerment where you feel like you have the right tools or at least the right understanding, capabilities, the capacity to take that next step to be a leader in your own life and how you want to see the world? Like Christina said, it really is being able to see people as people first. So getting back to the core of humanity, why are we all here? Why are we all here and how do we all connect? And also that understanding that we won't always get to 100%. The 70, the 80% is good enough for us to proactively continue moving forward in what we will co-create in our lived experiences in reality.
That's perfect. You have to be willing to honor those experiences, even the ones you can't or haven't been able to relate to. And certainly, I think that's where the tension is there are beliefs involved in these decisions that we're making as a country that just we don't have a category for because we haven't been in the shoes of the other. And so now we have to find a way to practice that radical concern for each other. Maybe I voted against a person's self-interest and maybe they voted against mine, but we can still be human and kind and decent and treat each other with dignity as we move forward.
Amazing. And then Christina, now kind of putting myself back in the shoe of the listener or, the other person on the other end of this, but you touched on this briefly, but if we can go a little bit deeper, again, kind of leveraging your own lived experiences and professional experiences, are there any practical tools, additional tips, advice that you can give listeners on creating a more inclusive environment, either at work, in their communities, or with their families?
Role model it. You have to role model it. I'll back up. For me, step 0 before I get to step 1 is I've had to unpack my own stuff. And I think for any leader or anyone that is looking to create inclusive spaces or behave inclusively, we have to unpack those experiences that maybe work against that effort. If you grew up in a house that was welcome to some but not all, where you received messages about people that were different that made you feel like they don't belong or they aren't invited, we have to unlearn some of the things that we grew up with, the values that maybe no longer serve us. Those things need to be said out loud and dismantled completely. Because if you're a person that grew up in a way that only held space for some people, but not all people, and now you're responsible for people, you have to figure out a way to unlearn what no longer serves you. And for me, and I'm not saying that this is prescriptive for everybody, but for me, working with a therapist at a time when I desperately wanted to become a much better leader, fully present in my home as a mother and as a partner to my husband, I needed to work through some stuff. And I think that's important, whether you're looking for personal growth or professional growth. I think working with someone, be it a counselor, a therapist, your spiritual leader, anyone that can hold space for those experiences, that is time well spent and, ground zero of your journey as an inclusive leader.
And then what's your one wish, or if you had a magic wand kind of looking 5 years down the road, what's your one wish for the collective, for humanity, for all of us as we continue navigating or moving through this? What's like this is it, cool, problem solved?
Antonio, you make me emotional just throwing that question at me. Like, I wish that people would decentralize themselves and think of others, maybe even think of the people on their way. Sometimes we make decisions and we say things and we do things because they serve the me and the now. And I wish that we could work towards a place where we're thinking about tomorrow and the next generation, and really achieve something that we can be proud of, because we created that legacy endures. And while we may not live long enough to see the fruits of our efforts, but if we do something that makes it easier and brighter and more hopeful for the next generation, that's my wish, is that we decentralize what the me needs right now and think about what the future needs. And I think that could be pretty powerful if we can start thinking about what others need instead of what the me and the now needs.
Amazing, and 100% agreed. And I even think through that kind of framing and through that lens, we can still find purpose in that. It doesn't have to be what I think right now is we're on such an individual, it's like so much about the individual and so less about the collective. And I feel like there are a lot of factors that are at play with this, technology and other global issues that are happening. But yeah, to your point, like, how do we start? We can go so much further together than we are separated, and that will benefit the future that's ahead of us. Any
Fingers crossed.
Final thoughts? Fingers crossed indeed. Any final thoughts or advice, feelings that you'd like to offer as people, as we are all now at this point will kind of seeing where we are on the other end of this big decision that we're all sitting with? Any final thoughts, things that people could turn to, resources? Any final thoughts?
Prioritize your rest and your self-care. It could, especially when you're involved in justice work or social justice work, I should say, now is a time to recharge and replenish your energy. Take really great care of yourself. We'll live to see another day. We'll live to fight another day. But we need our rest and we need our composure. And I think that self-love is important. I think it's okay to take a beat. There it is. I didn't even plan for that. I think it's important to make sure that we check in with ourselves. And, there's going to be a time where we want to, engage again, and we want to have the conversation again. We're going to try again. But check your batteries. Make sure that you have the energy, spiritual, physical ability to get into it again. And I don't think that we're useful to ourselves or to the world around us if we're at our absolute limit. So take really great care of your mental health, your spiritual health, and get some rest. And I know that that sounds simplistic given how complex the days ahead are, but I think a good moment to recharge and replenish will be better off for it. So leaders out there, take good care of yourselves.
Thank you so much for all of your thoughts that you've shared here with us today, your perspective, your guidance. Like I said, I look up to you. I respect you. Always honor and appreciate the time that we have shared and spent together, and appreciate the time that you've taken out of your day to spend with this audience as well. Much love. Before
Thank you, Antonio.
go, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah, let's go.
So the first question is, humanity to me means?
Love.
Love?
Love.
What's one thing you are hoping to achieve looking to the end of the year?
Progress. Not perfection, not a finished product, but progress.
What's been your biggest learning or aha this year, light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, that grief comes in various forms and for various reasons together. And I grieved that. I really did grieve, the best team that ever was. And we had an amazing run together at it was the heyday of my career. Facts, right? And I didn't realize that although that decision to start a new chapter was one of the most difficult decisions that I made, I wasn't expecting to grieve a professional loss. And it taught me that grief comes in various forms and for various reasons. Indeed. Miss you.
Life to me means?
Creating.
Ooh.
Yeah, that I wasn't expecting that answer, but I love creating spaces, creating things, creating feelings and experiences. Yeah, that's life. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Amazing. And where can people find you, Christina, if they would like to continue the conversation, if they'd like to learn more about you, explore, continue to pick your brain? Where can people find you?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. Every now and then I post my thoughts and reflections on what's happening in the world. Christina Glennon. And yeah, I'm not really out there on social media. It's for my mental health. Trust me on that. But I'm very comfortable and I feel very safe on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Christina. It has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to all of you, depending on where you decided to tune in today, on your phone, in your car, behind your desk. Thank you again for creating this space, creating this time again to check in with yourself, to check in with your own mental health, your feelings, your emotions. It's really, really critical and important that you continue making space to do this, especially as we all move through bigger life changes and transformation. Again, we are recording this 2 weeks out from the election, so we don't know who the winner of this election will be. But outside of this, there is also a lot happening globally. So as we move into the holiday season, just urging you all to take a break, to tune out. This year has been a lot and you deserve the rest, so please prioritize yourselves. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to share this with someone else. Also, do subscribe below, and I will see you in a couple weeks, and I'll be coming to you with insights, tips, tools on how to navigate the holidays with family. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.